the USMNT. They're trying to replace Gregg Berhalter. Obviously, after he was sacked, and in my opinion, sacked rightfully so, it was just not good enough for the U.S. men's national team anymore. Whether he was ever good enough or not is a whole different discussion. But what's not a discussion now is that he has been fired, and it's time that it's time that this organization is looking for a replacement. Obviously there was the unrealistic, maybe saying unrealistic is a little too far, but there was the heavy, there was the reaches, and of course Jurgen Klopp, being out there, it brought some U.S. men's national team fans to, a dream sort of scenario, but, obviously, it's not feasible. Apparently, reportedly, he turned down negotiations, and that he's uninterested in the offer. This was reported, according to some very, very good news reports. There was initial contact through, their intermediaries, but Jurgen Klopp declined, and he wants, he reiterated what he told us earlier, and that was he wanted a break from football. And obviously, this is not a big surprise. It is what it is. We saw what Tim Howard said a few days ago, saying if he was in charge of U.S. soccer, he would fly to Spain, which I believe that's where Jurgen Klopp lives, and he'd like to pay him a visit and try to he said, I believe I could convince him to take the USMNT job, quote unquote. That's what he said. Yeah, it's a unrealistic dream, and now we gotta go back to the real world scenario. And obviously there are some decent candidates remaining, very, very good candidates. Break them down. I'll break down, U.S. soccer's incompetent, so maybe their favorites will be a little bit different than me, obviously. But there's other good options. For me, my favorite option from the realistic ones has to be Hervé Renard. Hervé Renard, brilliant coach in the fact that he has accomplished more with less. He has accomplished better than the sum of their parts. He's accomplished teams, he's made them better than the sum of their parts. Individually, there's been players that are not at the levels, that shouldn't be playing as well as they've been playing, but he's made them better with the way he won the AFCON with Zambia, a perfect example, or with what he did with Saudi Arabia, beating Argentina in the opening game, being so close to getting the result against Poland, which could have probably been enough to push them into the round of 16. I love Hervé Renard. I love his style of play. I think when you watch his team play, they have a clear identity. You could saw from the clip at halftime of the Argentina game, he's a good motivator. He's someone, he's somebody that the team will listen to. We saw also in that video that he spoke English, which has been a very important factor in past when it comes to hiring coaches for this U.S. organization. They want someone to speak English. He can come in and he knows English. You can see it there. I don't think, and I think it'll be, the offers in terms of how much he'll make, it'll be a realistic offer. Egypt and Nigeria made official offers to Hervé Renard, and they've both sums have been around $2 million a year, which is around what Gregg Berhalter makes right now. So I don't think the salary is going to even be an issue with Gregg Berhalter. I think everything is lined up that this could be the perfect opportunity. He's very successful on the international scene as well. The thing with Jurgen Klopp is this was a manager who was successful in club football. We have not seen him at all in international football. This is Hervé Renard, who's been successful on the international level, which is different from club football. Club football, you get every day with the players. You don't get that in international football. International football, you get certain periods and a shorter amount of time to adopt your philosophy and your tactics and all that. And Hervé Renard has been used to that already, while, Klopp hasn't. So I think Hervé Renard is a very, very, very good option. In my opinion, my favorite option. But let's be honest. Let's be honest though. There is other there are other options that the US Soccer Federation might prefer, because they are incompetent. Like someone from FLS, I heard a lot about Steve Cherundolo, Jim Curtin. The MLS managers that I like the most is Wilfred Nancy. I think what he's done since taking over for Thierry Henry has been really phenomenal. I think also with Thierry Henry, he was kind of the de facto coach there at Montreal in terms of the tactics, and he was assistant for a very long time there. And then what he did following with Columbus Crew in terms of their style of play. I like the way that they play. I think he's a no-nonsense type of head coach, a tactician of the game. And for me, he's a really, really good manager. What he did in the first season, finishing third in the standings, in a very attractive style of football, that's the important thing. He has a set identity. He plays attractive football, and I believe we need a coach that doesn't have any sort of pragmatism to him, because that's some of the problems with Berhalter. Berhalter at certain times was very, very pragmatic. On the other hand, this attractive style, we're gonna go into games trying to win rather than trying to avoid to lose. He also won an MLS Cup with Columbus Crew, and he actually became the first black coach to win the MLS Cup with that attractive style of play. So, and it shows he's a winner. You know what I mean? He did within a season, within I believe as his first season, he did what Gregg Berhalter could not do at Columbus Crew for I believe Gregg Berhalter was at the was with Columbus Crew for, I believe it was 5 seasons. In one season he accomplished what Gregg Berhalter couldn't do with 5 seasons. He actually won a trophy, won MLS Cup in his first full season. For me, he has to get massive consideration. Not because of that, but because of the style of play. It seemed like the players are bought in, and they have a special sort of swagger watching them play. So I think Wilfred Nancy has to be an option, especially amongst the MLS coaches. I love him the best. There is also a thing that might throw off the US Soccer Federation. Maybe they want to hire an American. Now, for me, I think that's wrong. I think you hire the best coach. Foreigner, non-foreigner, you hire the best coach you think. Now, if the best coach you think is American, which I wouldn't agree with it, because I don't think the best coach that the U.S. could get right now is American. Now, if you deem out of all the necessary candidates, the best candidate is American, that is fine by me. But if you can get a guy like Wilfred Nancy, who in my opinion is better than the likes of Steve Cherundolo, and all that, I would get Wilfred Nancy. Now, someone who I don't think is a bad option, that some people will think is a bad option, is Jim Curtin. I think Jim Curtin is not a horrible idea. I don't. Because number one, he's been a candidate in the past, with the past USMNT coach options, and he's made Philadelphia Union a consistent team, a consistent force. But they had a really really bad 2024, which could makes it a little bit hard for him, and he hasn't really done much outside Philadelphia Union. But I definitely think out of the MLS options, he's probably second. I think if you look at other Americans, Pellegrino Matarazzo, what he's done at Hoffenheim in Europe, I think he could be a decent option. I think Cherundolo, he could be a good option. And he's been part of the USMNT setup. But again, I think that's just a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. But yeah, some of these other options that people want to talk about are not realistic. We're not going to get Jose Peckerman, who's actually 74. I don't even know if he would be interested. Others is like Stefano Pioli, David Moyes. I don't think these are players managers that are really, that really would fancy taking over this job. I don't think so. I think Joachim Low could be a decent option in the fact that he's already won a World Cup, and anyone who's won a World Cup should be serious contenders. But he has been out of the game for a while, and would the USMNT job entice him? I definitely think if it would entice him, he should be a candidate we're seriously looking at. Because if you won a World Cup, we ought to look at you. You know what I mean? If you're good enough to be a manager of a team that win a World Cup, you're definitely an option. Because we don't have that kind of sort of managers on the radar that are willing to take over the USMNT. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting way that they go. I definitely think we can look at all these dream options, but I feel like we're going to go with the boring hire in Steve Cherundolo or Jim Curtin or something of that sort. I don't think we're going to do something a little bit next level, because I think the U.S. Soccer Federation is going to play it safe, which I don't love, and I think it's going to cause some more years of misery. But, we'll see. Maybe they decide to be competent. I don't know. You never know. But for me, I told you all my options. I think Hervé Renard will be my number one. I think number two will be Wilfred Nancy. And I think number three would probably be... I don't know. I think there's a big drop off after number two. I have to be honest. I think number three. I have no idea. Who number three would be. Maybe Cherundolo. Maybe. Just out of lack of options at this point. Maybe new candidates come out. But, Jim Curtin, I don't know. Actually, Pellegrino Matarazzo, what he did in Europe and in Hoffenheim, being an American, I think he deserves a serious look. He's been looked at in the past. So, yeah, I'll go Pellegrino Matarazzo. But it doesn't seem like he's interested in a managerial position for a country. I think he really likes the club football scene. So, don't even think that's a realistic option. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the post-game incidents that occurred after the Uruguay-Colombia game.